गुड़गांव के टोल प्लाजा पे मेरे पास टोल के पैसे नहीं थे. मुझे टोल वाले ने मेरी शक्ल देख के बोला जा. मैं होंडा सिटी ड्राइव कर रहा था तो मुझे नहीं पता कि उसने दया खाई थी या डिस्गस्ट से बोला था कि गाड़ी बड़ी चला रहे हैं और पैसे नहीं है. बट this was poverty of a different kind. This was poverty which was factually pocket and 1000x mental. Because fact is that I could have asked my dad or mom some money that day. ऐसा कुछ बुरा नहीं था. But I couldn't. क्योंकि सच ये है कि मेरे अकाउंट में पैसे नहीं. And I just couldn't tell anyone. I just couldn't ask that money. I just didn't know what to do. You need to go through these curves. Anybody who is going to leave their corporate job or is going to leave their otherwise cushy life, but starting up is excruciatingly painful mentally. You can be in any privilege, but it is still mentally painful. It is going to challenge your wits. It's going to challenge the last nerve that you have. Starting up has become fashionable. Tech startups or startup as a word has given a lot of, has been given a lot of glamour nowadays, and thanks to Shark Tank, etc., it's, going through the roof right now. Everybody wants to start up. But honestly, let's talk about like 20 years back, which is not that long back a time, but, still relatable. Business was always lucrative. People in business always looked better to anyone and everyone. They looked like they had more time. They looked like they had more money, of course. They looked like they had more choice. They looked like living life a little more fuller, if I may say. I will not really use the word better. But a little more fuller. They could do things with a little more passion. But the fact is that running a business and building a good life are two different problems. I mean, I can almost call them disjoint. Because every business owner knows in their heart that how many fires they are dealing with at any given point in time. And 80% of those fires are mental, right? Because there's so much liability on you that you don't want to fuck up. Like your one fuck up can mean like switch on, switch off, right? That liability's weight is too much. Are they miserable? No. But anybody who's looking at themselves today and saying, oh, I'm in a corporate job, I want to start up, but I'm really afraid. My advice to them is, please don't start up. Because fact is that if this is a question that occurs to you in this way, that you're afraid, it's actually probably not a good idea to start up, and it has nothing to do with your capability. I don't think we should take this personally. This is not, a muscle flexing competition. This is an ass busting competition, which you only realize once you get into it. My view is that if you are somebody who believes, who feels that they want to start up, figure out why. Figure out your reasons. And I will not judge you on your reasons. My appeal generally is that just figure out your reasons. For example, if your reason is that I want to make a lot of money, let me tell you the startup curve. You are going to be poor and you are going to hit poverty line before anything starts working for you. So that death curve, अगर आपने जिंदगी में कभी poverty line feel नहीं की है ना, तो मैं बता सकता हूँ, it is quite funny. I have felt poorest in my life. I couldn't even cry because I was sitting in a Honda City. But trust me, and this is of course words of privilege. I need to acknowledge the privilege that मेरे घर में रोटी thankfully के लिए मैं dependent, मेरे ऊपर dependence नहीं थी. Then otherwise these guys were screwed for sure. I can tell you that that would have been a disaster. I have had days where, once, and this is 2000. I don't remember, 8 I guess or 9 I think. गुड़गांव के टोल प्लाजा पे मेरे पास टोल के पैसे नहीं थे. मुझे टोल वाले ने मेरी शक्ल देख के बोला जा. मैं होंडा सिटी ड्राइव कर रहा था, तो मुझे नहीं पता कि उसने दया खाई थी या डिस्गस्ट से बोला था कि साले गाड़ी बड़ी चला रहे हैं और पैसे नहीं है. बट this was poverty of a different kind. This was poverty which was factually pocket and 1000x mental. Because fact is that I could have asked my dad or mom some money that day. ऐसा कुछ बुरा नहीं था. But I couldn't. क्योंकि सच ये है कि मेरे अकाउंट में पैसे नहीं थे. सच ये है कि I had I literally had zero balance. And I just couldn't tell anyone. I just couldn't ask that money. I just didn't know what to do. And मैं गुड़गांव इसलिए जा रहा था क्योंकि किसी ने मिलने के लिए बुला लिया था. तो उम्मीद. You need to go through these curves. Anybody who is going to leave their corporate job or is going to leave their otherwise cushy life, whether that life comes from any direction, whether they built it, somebody else built it for them. But starting up is excruciatingly painful mentally. You can be in any privilege, but it is still mentally painful. It is going to challenge your wits. It's going to challenge the last nerve that you have. Now, how will you go through it if you're already afraid? A better way to think about it is, and I see this so many times where, somebody will come to me, a good cushy job, a corporate employee, doing well in life, and they'll say, hey, I want to start up, but, सब कुछ stake पे लगा के थोड़ा difficult लग रहा है. And I will actually tell them, you know what? World does not need another startup. Another startup needs you. नहीं, but वो तो सैलरी नहीं दे पाएंगे. पर अपने में तो जीरो हो जाएगी भाई. My recommendation to people is that before you start up, if you are in a zone where you are in your 30s, let's say, and assuming you're married, you have kids, your spouse, male or female, your parents, you have some dependents, right? You have some people who are dependent on you, and you have stakes that are high, and you have a leash which occurs to you limited. Let's say you say, you know what, I can take 6 months worth of burn, but after that, something has to work in that. My recommendation is that why don't you go and join a startup? And why don't you go and join a startup probably for 1/4 the salary or half the salary, or take a major pay cut? Because in your own, trust me, you will not get paid. तो जब अपने में बिना सैलरी के काम करना है, तो किसी और के साथ बिना सैलरी के काम क्यों नहीं कर सकते? That way, you will actually learn from a closer distance. Don't get me wrong. स्टार्टअप फाउंडर के साथ काम करने से स्टार्टअप का एक्सपीरियंस नहीं आता, क्योंकि फाउंडर के मन में जो चल रहा होता है वो आप उसके बाजू में भी खड़े हो ना, तब भी आप उसकी मनोस्थिति जान ही नहीं सकते. आप उसके हंसते और उसके रोने, उसके गुस्से और उसके इरिटेशन का रियल फ्लेवर कभी जानोगे ही नहीं, वो बताएगा ही नहीं, क्योंकि वो व्यक्त कर ही नहीं सकता, क्योंकि पॉसिबल ही नहीं है उसको शब्द में लेके आना. पर आप उसके बाजू में खड़े रह के, थिंक ऑफ इट लाइक हैविंग फ्रंट रो सीट्स टू अ डिजास्टर. You at least know how high the splinters go. You at least know what it feels like. You have a perception of heat. It may not be full heat. And that is going to be a great time to figure out, are you built for that? And I'll tell you why. Because in my life, I realized over years that there are certain people who thrive in uncertainty. And there are certain people who are all over the place as soon as uncertainty hits. And these two can be equally talented and skilled people. These two can be equally high intent startup people. But I have had experiences with employees where somebody who was seemingly smart, high IQ, good person, was doing well in a certain structure. I hired them. They were all over the place here. And I felt, what the fuck? I almost felt that they've duped me. That उन्होंने दिखाया तो कुछ और, marketing कुछ और दिया, product कुछ और मिला. And then I chucked them. And then they went in another setup, which was very structured. And they thrived. And I looked back and I was like, यार, शायद मेरे में ही कमी थी. बंदा तो ठीक है. But then I realized that the romanticism of startup is one piece, but not everyone thrives in uncertainty. बहुत सारे लोग दुनिया में ये जानते हुए काम नहीं कर पाते कि कल का हिसाब नहीं है. वो एक देखा है वो कॉमेडियन, he said कि मैं कल की चिंता नहीं करता, उससे डर नहीं लगता मुझे, मेरी फटी पड़ी है परसों की सोच के. तो प्रॉब्लम ये है कि अगर बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग हैं जिनको अगर ये बता दिया जाए कि कल अनसर्टन है तो उनकी आज की परफॉर्मेंस गिर जाती है. एंड देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग इन बीइंग दैट पर्सन. बीइंग अवेयर ऑफ बीइंग दैट पर्सन इज इंपॉर्टेंट. तो आपके स्टार्टअप करने में डर इस बात का नहीं है कि आपकी सैलरी नहीं आएगी, उसका तो आप हिसाब लगा सकते हो, दैट्स अ मैथमेटिकल प्रॉब्लम. डर इस बात का है कि अगर आप अनसर्टेनिटी में थ्राइव नहीं कर पाए फिर क्या होगा. अगर आप सामान जुटाकर क्या बनाना है, बनाकर कहां बेचना है, किसको बेचना है, कैसे बेचना है, एंड देन कैश फ्लो कैसे मैनेज, अगर ये सारी पूरी इक्वेशन के सारे पार्ट्स अगर आप हैंडल नहीं कर पाए तो क्या होगा. हो सकता है इसके 2 पार्ट्स में आप चैंपियन हो, पर ये टेस्ट कैसे होगा, ये टेस्ट करना बहुत मुश्किल है. सो माई व्यू इज दैट रोमांटिसिज्म ऑफ स्टार्टअप में नहीं पड़ना चाहिए किसी को. रीजन साफ होने चाहिए. जैसे मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मेरे स्टार्टअप करने का रीजन ये था कि मेरे पास बहुत सारी क्रिएटिव एनर्जी थी, मुझे कुछ बनाना था, और मुझे लगता था कि अगर मैंने ये नहीं बनाया तो मैं फिर क्या करूँगा. उसको दूर से देखने वाला बोलता था तू किसी के नीचे काम नहीं कर सकता, पर ये सच नहीं है. Actually, I'm a very good follower that I discovered later in life when I found people who I could submit to. And I'm a fantastic follower when I submit. Though I'm an asshole, I don't submit that easily. But if I submit, I'm a brilliant follower. I realized that problem was not that मैं किसी के नीचे काम नहीं कर सकता था. Problem was कि मेरे अंदर बहुत सारी creative energy थी, मुझे कुछ बनाना था, और मैं किसी और के आउटफिट में जाऊंगा तो मैं कोई भगवान का अवतार थोड़ी हूं जो मुझे बनाने देंगे. वो मुझे वो करने को बोलेंगे जिसके लिए वो मुझे पैसे दे रहे हैं, which is fair. But I wanted to burst that energy and I kind of started early. तो मेरे पास ये सवाल था ही नहीं कि जॉब छोड़नी है या नहीं छोड़नी है. That became easier for me, relatively. टर्की में वो हॉट एयर बलून गिर गया था 2 साल पहले. उसमें 3 लोग थे, 2 मर गए ऑन द स्पॉट और एक को बहुत भयंकर इंजरीज थी. सैड पार्ट ये नहीं था. सैड पार्ट ये था कि जो 2 लोग मरे उनमें से सिर्फ एक गिरने से मरा. सेकेंड गाय passed away of heart attack as soon as he knew that the balloon is falling. तो मेरा ज्यादा डर इस बात का नहीं है कि आप गिर के मरोगे. मेरे को ज्यादा डर इस बात का है कि स्टार्टअप करते ही जो अनसर्टेनिटी का बलून फटेगा, आप हार्ट अटैक से मर जाओगे. और उसको पता करने का तरीका है, किसी और के बलून में पार्टिसिपेट करो, थोड़ी सी सेफ्टी के साथ जाओ, rough it out with people, and you will figure out what is it that you are built of. If you're somebody who thrives in uncertainty, go dive in head first. That is going to be one of the most beautiful experiences of your life. If you don't thrive in uncertainty, figure out what's your soft landing like. Figure out a good team. Work with them. Startup करने का badge पहनने का कोई point नहीं है. Check this out in Silicon Valley. In fact, nowadays in India as well, especially in the last couple of years, people with ESOPs have actually made more cash than the founders who are still stuck in the companies where these people made cash from. When you see the reality of that, you'll be mind-fucked. I know companies in Silicon Valley where the hired CXO has much larger stake available than the founder. By the way, you know that Microsoft's stock just hit all-time high. This is a public stat. Steve Ballmer has more equity than Bill Gates. So, it's cool to be Bill Gates. It's cooler to be Steve Ballmer if you want to make money.